Hi, I'm Fern and this is Megan and we're tutorial group 2 coaching team 3.
We're going to be explaining what teaching games for understanding is and explain the other three pedagogies in comparison to TGFU. Scott will explain TGFU further. Constraints-led approach will be explained by Declan. Traditional will be explained by Cameron and Ailey will then follow with the conclusion. TGFU was designed by Bunker and Thorpe in 1982. This pedagogy purely focuses on learning through games. This approach is made up of 6 skills: the game appreciation, practical awareness, making appropriate decisions, skill acquisition and performance. TGFU is a learner and game centred approach to sport-related games. The coach is responsible for placing conditions on the game structure so that progress can be made on the complexity of the game and skill. By using this method, coaches can encourage both game appreciation and physical skill development.
TGFU outlines the importance within the cognitive learning theory which focuses the athlete's mind on what to do and how to do it, states Robert 2001.
According to Griffin and Butler 2005, games give meaning to the athlete's performance. It actively involves them in the learning process as they gain experience with performance skills throughout the games. Athletes will develop other skills such as decision making and become more competent.
Butler implies that this approach is seen as a more comprehensive way to think about the potential in physical education by using this wide variety of valuable orientations. Why we use it? It's seen as a positive, beneficial way to develop young athletes. It is a valuable source of learning as it allows athletes to become creative and have fun. Also, the environment is learner-based and is seen as less rigid, allowing athletes to feel comfortable and less under pressure whilst learning. Renshaw implies that a constraints-led approach involves individual constraints being inflicted upon the athlete. It weaves in and out, allowing tasks to be explained in detail to help the athlete learn more in a most effective way.
Miller 2007 said that a traditional approach is based on the content of the coach. They determine the aims for the lesson and on which skill is being taught.
Garrett 2006 states that physical activity storytelling is an effective approach and it gives the learner a voice. By using physical activity storytelling, the learner is able to understand a real life scenario by using a story and bring the ideas to life. Also allows kids to understand practices in an alternative way.
Scott will now give an example of TGFU in practice showing advantages and disadvantages of using this method.
So my name's Scott and I will talk about teaching games for understanding. As said earlier by Megan and Fern, teaching games for understanding is a game-based pedagogical approach that involves the use of small-sided games and modified condition matches to develop and enhance the participants' technical skills. So as you can see here, this is an example of TGFU. So it's a small-sided game-related practice. As you see, you have 2 teams and a hoop at the side there as a goal to aim for. So according to Thorpe, Almond and Bunker, due to any skills and techniques being learnt within a game-related situation, this gives the opportunity to develop and enhance cognitive skills, technical skills and tactical skills within this one practice. So due to the content design being athlete-centred, Romar, Sarin and Hasty say the overall development of decision-making, independence and tactical awareness are improved through playing the game, getting used to the game of situations and pressures within a match. So to summarise TGFU, the advantages are that it's athlete-centred, which encourages cognitive learning and decision-making skills to be developed through the game-based practices. The second one is that everyone is active and involved throughout the whole session, which means that it's enjoyable. The third one is that it focuses on varied skills and not just a one technique like traditional approach. And also finally, it develops long-term athlete development through the retention of skills and game-based knowledge.
The next coaching pedagogy is the constraints-led approach, or CLA. This approach consists of using boundaries and adaptations of a game in order to place constraints onto a task, the participant, or even the environment that is being used, in order to bring participants out of their comfort zone and find different ways in which to emerge from these situations using problem solving and their own initiative. CLA is very similar to TGFU, however it offers more complexity to the different practices and is more challenging for the participants to a certain extent. Vila wrote in 2014 that constraints-led coaching is another approach which uses small-sided games in order to develop an understanding of how to solve problems, as it involves fun yet competitive games and allows participants to find their own solutions rather than being told how to solve them by the coach. Constraints-led coaching can be used in all three stages of learning, but should be primarily used at the associative stage, where the participants have already grasped a slightly refined knowledge of their sport and are able to display this knowledge by knowing what to do within a task without too much instruction, and also don't need much of a demonstration. CLA is a coaching pedagogy which can effectively support engagement in physical activity and is a key tool in promoting self-motivation through physical activity and sport, as stated by Moy in 2016. By participating in constraints-led session, participants are in an environment where they're able to think for themselves and make their own choices, which is imperative if they are aiming to be successful in their sport.
Here you're seeing a constraints-led approach within a game, and the constraints that have been put on it is it's a 3v4, and also it's got to be a certain amount of passes that have been made within the game. You can also see that the team of three are struggling here as there's less people, and also because the larger team are using more space. You can see that we've made different constraints on the game, which is making the space smaller, which allows the smaller team of three to be able to, they don't have to cover as much ground, and it makes it easier for them to play the game.
So the traditional pedagogical approach is one that's been used since physical education teaching began back in the 1960s, and this method, according to Thorpe, Bunker and Almond in 1986, say that it's based around the development and the acquisition of skills which can be done through a drill, like the one we videoed here, rather than actually playing the game, which is more towards the TGFU model. So an example of the traditional pedagogical approach here is through basketball, and this is through a drill, which the aim of the session is to dribble through every one of the cones and turn and play a chest pass back to the person at the start of the queue. So due to the content design of this pedagogy being block practice, it's based around the completed and repetitive practice of this skill to develop skill acquisition and retention through this model. Some of the advantages of this are that it develops a short-term memory of those taking part in the drill. However, this can get repetitive, as said earlier, and can get boring for those. As you can see here, there's 4 people waiting to start the drill. So another advantage of the traditional coaching model is that the coach is able to see exactly what stage of learning the developer is in terms of the level of skill that they're practicing here. So that can be good, and it can be used as feedback in the future. However, there are disadvantages to this model. A study from Finch et al. 2013 highlights that the skill retention of these athletes when it comes to a game situation is extremely difficult to recall, which means that the TGFU model can be more beneficial in this area as they're constantly practicing within a game situation. Another study by Cuddy and Jacoby backs this up, as it highlights that athlete retention is completely different from the TGFU model to the traditional, as athletes' short-term memory is all that they get from this model, and the TGFU model highlights more long-term memory and acquisition and retention of skills. So to summarise the traditional coaching pedagogy, it is a good way to develop skills for short-term memory. However, the TGFU model is better advised in this case, as long-term athlete development and retention of skills are better placed to learn within a game situation.
Hi, I'm Connor and I'm going to be talking about physical activity storytelling. McClellan gives a great overview of physical activity storytelling in the International Journal of Sports Science and Coaching in 2018. So it begins with the creation of a story that can be reenacted physically. The story will integrate different physical skills and actions that the participant will complete. So rather than doing sport-specific training like TGFU, the coach puts the main skills used into a certain sport in a story adventure. Often the coaches enthusiastically instruct participants along the way. It might be perfect for some people, but not for someone else, so you have to take into account the stage of learning. The coach must decide if it's most suitable. It's often used at grassroots level because it's fun, engaging and effective while still learning skills for different sports. Play is very important in children's lives and development, and it can impact their social, emotional, physical and cognitive development. Physical activity storytelling could be seen as less effective as it isn't sport specific. Some children will find it harder to transfer the skills learned into the sports they're using. This could be because there's other factors considered in the actual sport, such as different equipment, defenders and pressure on players. The quality of skills learned in physical activity storytelling compared to TGFU aren't as good, and some children might not even see skills linked to a different sport. To improve this, the coach could tell participants how skills are integrated in different sports so they can visualise it better. It can be less popular because some coaches find it harder to coach and use their imagination. Our example of physical activity storytelling is a Dora the Explorer adventure. So the participants are told that they have to get through a magical jungle to get to Dora's gymnastics competition. There's lots of obstacles throughout this. It'll be fun and engaging because the children will like Dora the Explorer, and the skills and tasks throughout linked to gymnastics, which is the overall skills we're learning. As you'll see, the coach continuously gives instructions to the participants.
Here I'm instructing them through the forest by doing rolls under the bridge and watching out for Swiper, which is linking to the Dora the Explorer theme. This is using gymnastic skills as well, while still having fun and keeping them engaged. So here I'm instructing the athletes to climb up a tree and use their imagination. We're going up the tree so that we can see where Swiper is and see how far we've got to go to the gymnastics competition.
In conclusion, by drawing on experiences using the 4 coaching pedagogies, teaching games for understanding, constraints-led coaching, physical activity storytelling and traditional coaching, we're able to suggest a recommended coaching style which can be used for optimum development in sport. Collectively, we suggest that the most effective pedagogy to use in coaching is teaching games for understanding, as the fundamentals of skill-based learning are taught through this approach. And when TGFU is combined with a small influence of constraints-led coaching, the coach can achieve their maximum potential in development of an athlete or a group of participants within a sport. By combining these pedagogies, coaches will be able to maintain participants' interest in sport, and they will be able to engage with the activities a lot more and find their sporting experience much more enjoyable and fulfilling. Throughout this module, we've been able to experience many different coaching pedagogies, and from this, as a group, we're able to determine when each coaching style should be used and why. And this is helpful for our personal development, as we've been able to enhance our understanding of each pedagogy and coaching as a whole.